Hey, this is Karen Hunter, and welcome to the Hub. We're doing writers masterclasses here, and I want to invite you to ask me a question, right? So you can go to Twitter at Karen Hunter. I am a font of information, and if I can't give you the answer, I'll find somebody. I'll bring somebody in to answer your question about anything to do with writing, because I think that more of us need to get into it. So I was asked a question about writer's block recently. And again, you can follow me at Karen Hunter on Twitter. I don't really do well on Instagram in terms of the back and forth. Twitter's where I communicate with people. Instagram's where whatever. I never get writer's block, and I'm not bragging about it. Writer's block comes when you sit there. It's almost like being constipated, right? It's like a mental constipation. And the more you think about being constipated in real life, the more constipated. Who's ever been constipated, right? I've been constipated a couple of times. And when you start obsessing about your constipation is when you get more, then you can never go. Then you got to take something, That never happens to me because writing is the process of doing. And I say this to my students, and it's probably the training at working at the Daily News for 16 years. You didn't have the luxury to not hand in a piece when your deadline was here, right? So if your piece was due at 5 o'clock, you had to put in a piece at 5 o'clock. And what I learned really early in my career, and again, I'm writing every day, especially sports. Things are happening. You're out, you're covering. I'm covering the Yankees. I can't tell the editor I don't have a piece because I can't think of a good lead. So I learned putting something on the page works, even if it sucks. A lot of you are perfectionists. You're really, really, really smart, and you're good, and you're talented. And so you want everything that you put out to be awesome. And so do I. But you know what's better than awesome? Something. Mediocre, even crap on a page is better than awesome nothing. So you're awesome nothing with your writer's block. I'm always going to get the job. Because here's what I also learned. People have editors. I've always had an editor, whether I was, when I was an editor, that was cool. But first day at the Daily News, there were 3 editors in the sports department. Every book I've ever written, I've had an editor. Because no one is going to, some people, but I'm going to tell you, I watched raw copy come in. Mike Lupica, when I got to the Daily News, I started going into the queue and seeing the raw copy come in. And boy, was I surprised that the stuff that ended up in the paper wasn't the stuff that got submitted. What? I thought these writers would. So once you realize that a lot of what you read could be the masterwork of a great editor, you start to let yourself off the hook a little bit, and you realize that even writing your own memoir or even writing your masterpiece novel is a work of collaboration. I talked about this early on my first book. With my first job at the Daily News, not my first job, but my first job at the Daily News, because I had many jobs at the Daily News, the first thing I did was send my pieces around to different people there because the feedback helped me get better. So if you have writer's block, just write something. Even if it's the crappiest thing you could ever imagine, and give it to somebody and get their opinion on it. What's the topic of the thing that you're going to write? Put it down on paper or type it up, send it to somebody, get their feedback. And in that back and forth, ideas are going to happen. It's like great music. There's nothing when I think about writer's block, I think about Ashford and Simpson. It has nothing to do with writing, but it has everything to do with writing. This duo was able to produce some amazing, amazing works for Motown, and then they went on to do amazing, amazing best hit songs for themselves, Ashford and Simpson, but they worked together. It was a collaboration. And I think about Michael Jackson. Without Quincy Jones, would that have been all of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, all greatness requires that you have a back and forth. And that also, from a writer's perspective, because writing can be very solitary. Most writers are in their own headspaces way too much. And I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I'm a smart enough writer to know that that's where you can get in trouble. So my advice to you, this lesson today, is as a writer, if you've ever experienced writer's block, get out of your own way, get out of your own headspace, and find a mentor, somebody that you can bounce things off of. And here's your exercise. When you feel that block coming, just start writing. Free form, no structure, just write. Just write. Because in the process of writing, your ideas will start to flow, and then you'll be unblocked. It'll be like taking a nice probiotic for your brain. Writing unto itself will create more writing, which will unleash all the ideas that you may have. So I never get writer's block because I just keep writing. I write through it, and I know that somebody's going to have my back. There's always going to be an editor who's going to tell me, no, that sucks. And maybe, like I had an editor once, and maybe the editor will be wrong, but you'll be able to defend yourself because you put something out there. I did a book with a guy named Mason Betha. You know him, M-A$ Mace, right? And we were I was going back and forth with the editor, and I was struggling with it because Mace's cadence, his flow is interesting. It's interesting. At the time, he had left Bad Boy, and I think he was really scared for his life. And I went out to Atlanta, went to his church. He had become a pastor. Spent some time with who was going to become his wife, his fiance at the time. And I was struggling through the process. And the editor said to me, I want you to, she said, I want you to write slow. I want you to try, I want the whole book to be written slow. And I was like, what does that mean? She was like, just write. So I said, my dumb ass, and I'm not going to say I'm dumb. I follow instructions. Actually, editors love me because if you tell me to do something as strong-willed and as I am, I love to be edited because I know that excellence comes in collaboration. Excellence comes in iron sharpening iron. I just threw another scripture in there. We're going to get to that masterclass in religion soon. Iron sharpens iron. So I need to have that. So I tried for an entire day to write this book slow. And I tried it. You drag out the words. And I went back to look at it. I was like, this is some bull crap. So I had to call up this editor who I trusted and respected. And I was like, this ain't working. We ain't writing slow. Because what I learned in that moment is that, when people pick up a book to read it, they automatically hear that person's voice if you are doing your job. And we'll talk about channeling at some point, or maybe we have already. I don't remember. These are out of sequence. But you will read a book and you will hear a voice in your head. So if it's Mace, you already are hearing his slow talk. I don't have to write slow. But it unleashed something in me because I was like, okay, now that I got that crap out of the way, I can now get to the story, which is another reason why I never have writer's block, because there's always a story to be told. If you have writer's block, it's because A, you're probably not asking yourself or your subject the right questions. Writer's block comes because you run out of ideas. There's an endless font of ideas with people. People are just, especially celebrities and people, but ordinary people have stories. Somebody on a train has a story. Some kid in fifth grade there's endless stories. And you have to learn how to ask the right questions. Even as I'm writing, I'm asking myself questions that I want to ask the person that I'm working with. But if it's a solo effort, say I'm doing a book, which I'm working on right now, on building pyramids. Research, okay, how do pyramids get built? So now I'm going, and then at each turn, and I've experienced this a lot, at each turn, more questions come up. I started doing some work in the hub, which you guys are experiencing, on Ida B. Wells, somebody that I knew in history. I knew her as a crusader against lynching. She would go out and chronicle lynchings. And as a journalist, I had an affinity towards Ida B. Wells because she was the reason why we know about the lynchings in this country. She's the reason why there's a lynching museum in Alabama. She's the reason why so many lives that we may never have heard their names or known their stories were told because this woman put her life on the line to go out there and report it. But as I'm reading about Ida B. Wells and writing in each of her pieces, I write an introduction, I'm now curious about her life. So I'm going in and I'm like, wow, Ida B. Wells, she was married, she had 4 kids, but she never took her husband's name. So in my mind, I'm like, this is in the late 1800s, early 1900s. How is it possible that a black woman, women couldn't own property in this country until the 70s in their name? Couldn't get a credit card in this country until the 70s in their name. White women couldn't vote until the 1920s. But here was this woman out there crusading, fighting for people's dignity, who didn't take her husband's name. I wonder what that story is. So that took me on a path of like, I want to write about that. So if you're curious, if you are somebody who wants to know answers, you can't possibly have writer's block. So I'm going to challenge you to be more curious, to ask better questions, and to just get into the process of writing. The other thing that I was asked recently was, how can I be original? I feel like everything that I write, somebody else has already written it. Well, let me let you off the hook. There is nothing new under the sun. I can't say that enough. Romeo and Juliet. That story has been told a billion times in many different ways. Young people whose families don't like each other and they sneak away to get together, and there's some tragedy. There's so many renditions of Shakespeare's great Romeo and Juliet, I can't even start to name them. There's nothing new under the sun. The only thing new is you. So, if you think your story's been told before, then maybe you're plagiarizing. Because as far as I know, there's only one you. So the story can't be told before if you're telling it. And that's how I always let myself off the hook. I think you have to have a certain level of delusion. You have to have a certain level of delusion about yourself, that you are that special, that even if you're writing a story that's been told before, that the way you're writing it, it has never been told before, so therefore it is original. And that actually is true. So I never worry about topics or anything. I'm always thinking, if I'm doing it, which is why, it's kind of, I kind of get conflicted sometimes between reading other people's works as a model and incorporating it into mine, right? But it is work for me. So that's a good example, right? I incorporate other people's works, modeling, not the words, because that's plagiarism, but modeling the styles of other people into my style until I develop my own, because that'll come. And I'm at a place right now in my wisdom of having done this for so many years that I can do it endlessly. But early on, as a 20-something-year-old writing books and writing for newspapers, you might have to model other people. There's nothing wrong with that. Just model the right people and model excellence until you find your own voice, because it's in there. But you'll never find it if you give up because this sounds like somebody else. I listen to Bruno Mars. How many people like Bruno Mars? You like Bruno Mars? Well, when I listen to Bruno Mars, I hear The Time, Mars Day. I hear Prince. I hear everyone but Bruno Mars. And I think of him and I was like, yeah, he just ripped off a whole style and a whole genre from the 80s. But this generation, they don't know that. When Mary J. Blige came out, everyone thought she was original. And I was like, that's 1970s and 60s all day long. But she was able to put her own spin on it, right? Bruno Mars is doing something that's been done before with his own spin. Childish Gambino, I've heard that, Shy Lights and all. Like, that's nothing new. And Michael Jackson was modeling Jackie Wilson. He was modeling James Brown. There's nothing new, but he put a spin on it. And writing is the same. Find you a writer that's hot, that has been hot, that is smoking, and model that writer until you find your moonwalk. Yeah, I just went there. Find your moonwalk, and you will. Trust me. It's just about time. All right. So those are many lessons. It's The Hub. I'm Karen Hunter, and these are master classes in writing.